It was 1539, Pentecost. And I told you immediately after George with the beard has died, the citizens of Leipzig called him, please preach here in Leipzig as well. They have been waiting more than 22 years after Wittenberg. And he came. And don't forget, in the past, there were no benches in the past, yeah? People had to stand up. I would like to give you a clue why Martin Luther also started the Reformation. Probably heard a lot about. Martin Luther was a Christian, but he saw a lot of things were added after the New and the Old Testament, the New Testament was written. In the Lutheran churches, the pastors wear a black coat. Yeah. So, and when Martin Luther came, he said also, you will hear it probably in Wittenberg. Don't talk too long as a pastor. I don't know how long your pastor talks, but he said to the people, to the new pastors, go up to the pulpit, open your mouth, talk loud, and shut down soon. And in the past, the pastors got a sundial, turned it around, and after 10, 15 minutes, they had to stop talking. Yeah. And he said also, we should sing together because it makes you strong. It gives you strength. And the second passion of Martin Luther was music. As a young boy, in the past, it was only allowed for boys to sing in a church. Disciple Paulus wrote in the Bible, women have to be quiet in the community. It was not allowed to sing in a church and not for a woman to preach in a church. Started in Lutheran churches of Leipzig with the reunification. And then there's a pulpit more in the middle because I don't know how it's in your church. The pastor should be like a shepherd. Yeah, that the sheep can be around him. And not in front. And in front, in our chancel, there's a baptismal font, and in front of the baptismal font from the 17th century in front, it's the grave of Johann Sebastian Bach. Yeah, 3 names have been connected with the church. Boys' choir of St. Thomas, yeah, boys have been singing for 800 years, Martin Luther, and Johann Sebastian Bach. Ladies and gentlemen, a Lutheran. The most played musician in the whole world. Not Beethoven, not Mozart, not Michael Jackson or Elvis Presley. It's Johann Sebastian Bach. He lived here 27 years in the former building over here. He had to conduct the boys. He had to compose. He made coffee house music. He checked organs. He played organ, and he made 20 children. 7 with the first wife, 13 with the second wife. eat and to drink. And the owner was a friend of Martin Luther, and he wrote in his last will that Martin Luther shall get something from the heritage. And Martin Luther wrote him back a letter to thank him, and the original letter was burned in the Second World War, but there is a facsimile inside. So now we are walking. Do you know what Martin Luther said? He said a lot of things, not only about religion. One of my favorite sentences, and maybe you will see it in the Luther House in Wittenberg, is believe in Christ and do whatever needs to be done in your profession. It's a very modern sentence. Brauhaus, yeah. There's a Brauhaus behind you. Brauhaus means brewery. They have copper kettles inside. They're brewing beer, but it's also an Italian restaurant. You could have something to eat and to drink there as well. Yeah, one of my favorite toasts is a toast of Martin Luther. He said once to a gentleman, "If you don't love your wife, a wine and a song, you will remain a fool your whole life long." You get married immediately. Widow Lehmann, she was young and pretty, and she had a love affair with the Duke of Saxony. Maybe you heard in Dresden about him, Augustus the Strong. And therefore she got the license to serve coffee, and the house sign, a sultan getting coffee from an angel, in the background a coffee tree. That's why the house is called At the Arabic Coffee Tree. And they open at 11 o'clock. On the left-hand side, where the windows open in this room, the musicians met each other. Leipzig was also the town of music, because we later Richard Wagner, Robert Schumann, Felix Mendelssohn. I don't know if we have people with Norwegian roots. Edvard Grieg, yeah, they all had their cup of coffee in there. It's really nice. They have really beautiful tarts. But the cafe is today on the third floor. Yeah, on the first floor there's a restaurant inside. Yeah, maybe you heard about Augustus the Strong. He was strong in his arms. Also somewhere else, the legend says he made 365 children. And the other day, a lady behind me said, "Poor wife." Women could longer sit down and read and write and knit and so, and they could watch the husband where he went, where he came from. Then they had the folds, they had the horse stables in the past on the other side. They had offices, ballrooms, galleries, and under the roof were the storages. Over the grain beams they brought the wares and goods to the under the roof. And in communist times it was like every big building. Expropriated families had escaped to Western Germany, because in communist times, don't forget, we didn't have any freedom. You couldn't have your private business. You could not have your own big building, only a small house it was allowed. You, as a Christian, you didn't have the best chances in life. Yeah. You couldn't travel to the Western countries. You had to wait for your apartment. You could only rent an apartment when you have got it from the state. You had to wait as a married couple up to 3 years, as a single person up to 10 years before you had to share the apartments with other people. For a car you had to wait up to 18 years, only, by the way. This was a ruin, closed, and now there are not only offices, a restaurant and shops, there are apartments under the roof. And here I would like to tell you a special, we call it now legend. This oriel or bay window is from the former building, from the 16th century. It was called the house with the golden snake. It had nothing to do with the doctors, yeah. But the original oriel was facing the other side, the market square. And when Martin Luther preached at Pentecost 1539 at St. Thomas, not every citizen of Leipzig could listen to him, because in the church only around 1,000 people could stand very close to each other, but Leipzig had around 8,000, 8,500 inhabitants. So the mayor said, "Please preach to the citizens of Leipzig from the oriel." don't forget it was facing the market square, and the people were standing on the market square listening to Martin Luther. So now we are leaving. We are going to the market square. Every Tuesday, every Friday. We had the annual trade fairs here. We had big celebrations here, like executions. They were like reality show today, celebrations. Yeah. And I would like to mention one. After the debate of Leipzig, George with a beard forbid to deal with Bibles of Martin Luther, also translated into German. But a book dealer from Nuremberg sold Luther Bibles here, and he got executed for Luther Bibles here on the market square. Yeah, but we had really real celebrations like noble weddings here. For example, William from Orange, the founder of the Netherlands, married here Anna from Saxony in the 16th century, and she was ugly, hunchback, nasty. She drank a lot, but she was rich. And the other day, a gentleman told me, "You cannot have everything." Now we don't execute anymore. We have nice Christmas market here. And here on the left-hand side on the second floor is a special exhibition about the debate of Leipzig. And during the debate, everything was written down what Dr. Eck, the Catholic scientist, said, and Martin Luther. So they organized two actors. They're playing Martin Luther and Dr. Eck, and you can see a video, and they are discussing with each other. And there's also something very, very interesting presented there. The original authentic wedding ring of Katharina von Bora, Mrs. Luther. It was first a plain ring, only gold, but then she added a ruby, a crucifix, and so on. And it's presented there, the details are explained there. And now it's a tradition um, in a Lutheran in Lutheran families that if a young woman marries, she gets a replica, a copy of the ring of Katharina von Bora. Yeah, goldsmiths are doing it here. So now we continue. We have to walk around a bit. I wanted to point out that St. Nikolai, of course, all the old churches were Catholic churches. And here, the most of the old churches now are Lutheran churches. And I would like to say something about the religion or the faith here. In communist times, it was allowed to go to church but not wanted. That's why the most people in East Germany are atheists. Only between 10 and 25% are Christians here. And the worst percentage, I don't know if you heard it in Eisleben, where he was born and where he died, 10%. In Wittenberg, 15%. And here at least 25%. I never gave up my faith. It was my kind of resistance. And then I don't want to hear this nutcase telling me about something like this. Anyway, the church is very colorful inside. You have a bit of spare time. If you want to go, I point out how to reach it. It's around 300, 400 meters from here. Very colorful. 18th of June 1953, we had a revolution in East Germany. We wanted to chase the communists away after Stalin has died. But it was at the edge of World War III. In a checkpoint Charlie in Berlin, there were tanks, Russian tanks and American tanks facing each other. And in whole East Germany, the Russians shot down this revolution. And here on the 17th of June 1953 was a Russian tank T-54 facing the market square. Here in Leipzig also people were shot down. 1956 in Hungary, shot down. 68 in Czech, shot down. 81 in Poland, shot down. And two men said something, and it was, we have to thank two people, Gorbachev and Reagan. He said before, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down the wall. and Gorbachev didn't let the Russian regiments march anymore. Every big East German town had a Russian regiment. Yeah, also here in Leipzig. It could have been a disaster again, but we came with candles and prayers. Yeah, and before we continue walking, you can see a nice corner building with a little tower on top. This is the most beautiful coffee house in Leipzig. It was built by Huguenots, French refugees, and so on.
Yeah?
Now we are going down here. Why, this is a gentleman we don't know. And on the other side are two women. The goddess Athena, the goddess for wisdom and knowledge, and the goddess Aphrodite, the goddess for love. These are women. This is normal. And Martin Luther said a lot about his wife. He said once, and this is really nice, he said, I always will be a lover of the marriage. Yeah? Don't forget he was 42 when he got married. And the best of the marriage are the kids. Like the best of sheep is the wool, the best of the marriage are kids. They had 6 kids. And there are still 2,000 descendants of Martin Luther, not with the name Luther anymore because they're dating back to one girl. Yeah. Now, by the way, it's used for concerts and exhibitions. Because the name Luther is they don't have the name Luther anymore or Luther because they're dating back to one girl, and girls always take. They had 3 girls, 3 boys, 3 daughters, 3 sons. The branch of the sons
Mostly
died carved. Decorations carved here in the Ore Mountains, not far from here. Yeah, angels, this candle holders, pyramids, nutcrackers, and so on. Sculptures, they're moving here in front of us. I would like to point out another sculpture. These are gypsies, they are doing something. Here I'm stopping, and if you look to me, I point out, if you want to go to the church, St. Nikolai, it's down to your left-hand side, the second lane left is the church St. Nikolai, yeah? And it stings here, but it's a sewage. And after I finish, I will finish here in the nice arcade. When you come to this nice arcade, bless you. We are here above the most famous place of Leipzig. Underneath is Auerbach's Keller, or cellar, you would say, named after the first owner, Heinrich Stromer from Auerbach in Bavaria. He studied here at the beginning of the 16th century. He married a girl, built a house, doesn't exist anymore, and he sold wine in the cellar. And he was a friend of Martin Luther. There was a secret meeting during the debate of Leipzig 1519 here in his cellar. And Martin Luther had a lot of other friends and supporters, and one was Faust. He really existed, an alchemist. He taught in Wittenberg, and he wanted to get the recipe for eternal life. That's why he sold his soul to the devil Mephistopheles. And the legend says, Easter 1525, them two went downstairs, they drank a lot, signed a contract. He would have got the soul, he should have got eternal youth, but he should prove that he's a magic man. And he said to the 3 students over there, if you drill in your table a hole, your favorite wine will come out. They did it. They got absolutely drunk, them 3. And they wanted to fight against Faust and Mephistopheles, but Faust and Mephisto could escape riding on a wine barrel. This is a legend. Paintings downstairs are showing the legend. And when Goethe in the 18th century was sitting downstairs, he saw the paintings about the legend and got inspired to write the most famous German play, Faust. Yeah? Yeah, and in this Faust are only two real places, the hill Brocken of the Harz Mountains and our Bachceller. Yeah, future. He said, if I would know the world would end tomorrow, I still would plant an apple tree today. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.